What's up, everybody? We're in Brisbane. We are in Brisbane. This is a Cube of Truth here in Queen Street, Brisbane City, Australia. We're out here showing people the truth of what happens in the meat, dairy and egg industries. These are standard practices, even within the farms and the slaughterhouses that label themselves free range, grass fed, cage free, humane certified, RSPCA approved. This is exactly what happens, and most people think that there is a nice way to do this and there's better ways that we can do this, but this is enslavement, torture and murder. And of course they're only saying that superficially without actually putting themselves in the victim's position. And so our role, our goal as an organization, as activists, is to put them in the victim's position, because when they put themselves in their position, they understand exactly how atrocious. They understand how, it's really not hard to imagine the level of harm and abuse that you are subjected to when you're put into one of these non-human animals' positions. So just wanting to go live and showcase what we're up to here, spreading the vegan message and engaging people in activism. We've got a crew here, activism over there, we've got an activist here, we've got activism happening right there. Outreach has been okay so far. Definitely spoken to a few people so far, and just went live on Instagram and showed one of those conversations while I was live. He wasn't listening, but the points were made nonetheless, and he got the truth given he was being ridiculous and giving the most stupid arguments that we all hear as vegans. If you're not vegan and you're watching this, what you're seeing on these screens is exactly what you're responsible for. The worst form of animal abuse on earth, and you probably say that you're against animal abuse. Well, can you think of anything worse that you can do to animals? Subjecting them to captivity against their will, tormenting them, mutilating them, castrating them. And you might say, well, we shouldn't be doing those things. Well, they all end up with a knife in their necks as well. And so can you really care about them when you're sticking knives in their necks? It's a really simple equation that vegans shouldn't even have to point out to you. But you have no right to say that you're against animal abuse whilst eating meat, dairy, eggs, wearing leather, silk, down, etc. Being responsible for consuming any form of animal product in a world, in a modern society, when we have the option to be vegan, and it's extremely easy and perfectly adequate and viable. If you're not active as someone who is vegan, we implore you. Our whole mission as an organization is also to give a platform for vegans to be active and to speak up for these oppressed individuals, the most oppressed individuals on earth. So here we are setting up here in Queen Street Mall, Brisbane, but we have these cubes set up around the world. So go to our website, cubeoftruth.com, and find out where the nearest cube is to you. And if there isn't one happening in your city, then you can apply to become an organizer. If you aren't able to do activism for some peculiar reason, then perhaps consider supporting us on our website. Go over to cubeoftruth.com and have a look at the different ways that you can support our work. If our work has proven to be valuable to you in any way, please consider doing that. Alright guys, I'm gonna wrap this up now so I can talk to some kids that are watching. Actually, I'll see if they are willing to talk on camera. Hey guys, would you like to know more about why we're here? What's that? Yeah? Are your parents nearby? Okay. So are they okay with you watching this? Yeah? Yeah, so if you'd like to know more about... Hello.
Hi.
Would you like to know more about why we're here?
I just assume that's for anti-animal cruelty.
Yeah, well, very well put. This is the standard practices for meat, dairy and eggs here in this country, but also around the world. And these are also the farms and the slaughterhouses that label themselves free range, grass-fed, cage-free, organic, and RSPCA approved. So you would label this as cruelty, animal cruelty? Would you call this animal abuse?
I think it depends. It depends how they being treated. If they've been looked after.
That's how they're treated. We're just showing you the reality of all of it. But let's just put you in the victim's position for a moment. If you were in their position, would you like to be stabbed to death? Would that be considered abusive? Or not?
Of course.
Yeah, so... yeah, doesn't want to hear more. When the truth hits. You know, it sickens me how non-vegans try to look for a good way to do this when it's so clearly evil. But at the end of the day, we just need to speak the truth to people. It's really that simple. It's not about doing it maliciously. We're not out here to own people and to be assholes, but we are willing to take the risk of people not liking us for speaking the truth on behalf of these animals. Because if we were in the animal's position, if you were in the animal's position, you would want someone to speak boldly about what it is that you're going through. And it is really that simple. Now, you might say, well, that wasn't effective because she walked away. She's not open to being vegan, no matter what you say. It depends which individual you're speaking to. It doesn't matter how you outreach her, she is not going to go vegan. She's not willing and open to doing that. But this approach that we have is about saying what needs to be said on behalf of these victims. And so at least she heard some truth that she needs to hear on behalf of these animals, that she's responsible for oppressing. And this approach gives you the best chance of penetrating through the conditioning that humans are subjected to. And you might be saying, well, it wasn't, very compassionate the way you spoke to her. I get that criticism. The way I spoke to her was with ultimate respect for, number one, the victims that she's responsible for oppressing, and also for her, because I believe that she is deserving of the truth and nothing but the truth, meaning the truth without sugarcoating it, without glossing over it with nonsense pleasantries. I believe that all humans deserve that. And deep down, I believe that she will be grateful at some point for being given the truth. I mean, she may not ever reflect on this and be grateful. My point is, it has the best chance of achieving that. But we are here to speak to those... Hey, man.
Brilliant.
Yeah?
Wonderful.
Yeah?
Keep coming through them all. There's got to be done.
Yeah.
It's healthy. Do you know somebody called Brissy, by any chance?
No.
Brissy?
No.
She's been helping out with you guys.
Would you like to know more about why we're here?
I know a lot about why you're here.
You do?
And it's healthy.
It's healthy. What do you mean by healthy?
It's bringing attention to the way food and a lot of atrocities are done to benefit humans without careful planning.
Without careful planning.
The planet.
Caring for the planet. So we're not environmentalists.
It's a bigger picture than that. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Say that again?
It's a bigger picture than that. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, you could say that about every cause, though. You could say that about feminism, gay rights. The bigger picture is environmentalism. But that, I mean, if you said that at a
You
gay
can't
rights
really-
rally,
You can't really say that at a gay rights rally with all due respect. You
okay,
can't
well,
say
child
that-
trafficking, you know, all the transporting that goes on in that industry, because that's bad for the planet. But is that really the focus of ending child trafficking?
No, and that's, you're drawing attention to it, and that's the point. It's not trying to solve, it's drawing attention to it, to allow humanity to respond.
But that actually distracts from the point. What you just brought up is environmentalism, which is a good cause to be fighting for. My point is, the reason why we're standing here is because we're anti-animal abuse.
Loud and clear, which is the broader sheep being, because you can't separate animals and humans and nature from one another. We all feed into one another. So you can't
Right.
separate the three.
Right.
So don't try to separate. Don't try to divide.
No. All I'm saying is there should be a movement for animal rights. Do you agree with that? There should be an animal rights movement.
Natural. Well, the fact that they're both on moths or on the protected and endangered species list, big time.
Okay, but do you know how?
Animal involving insects, involving what level of animals are you talking?
Well,
Because-
let's just talk about the most abused on Earth: cows, chickens, pigs, fish, turkeys, etc. The ones that humans choose to eat. Let's just start with a question. Are you against animal abuse? Are you against humans treating animals
I'm
in an
against
abusive way?
Humans abusing anything that has a natural life order. Absolutely.
What do you mean by natural life order?
Be it from a microorganism to a fish, be it cockroaches, be it anything. None of them should be abused because we're on exactly the same trajectory as any other animals on Earth, and that has been prefixed by animals before humanity, and it will be after humans. There's no two ways about it.
Yeah.
So
what we're showing on the screens right now, would you say you're against that?
of course,
Okay, so they're the standard practices that you're watching, or that you were watching. They're the standard practices in the meat, dairy, and egg industry.
and more specifically, I'm just with fishing, the fact that about 4 or 5 hours on any Saturday afternoon will be spent, if watching commercial television, we've spent watching people catching fish for fun, letting go, like whether it's letting go or grabbing a big one, like it's a sport and it is heinous.
Yeah. Okay, so I agree with that. But my question is, if you're against what you're watching on the screens here, and the reason why we're out here is to show what's going on to those animals, do you think it's possible to be against animal abuse while eating meat, dairy, or eggs?
Yes,
Okay, can you explain how?
definitely, because eggs are unfertilized. Unfertilized eggs.
Do you know what happens in the egg industry?
No, I don't know.
We're showing it.
It's not
Would you
when
like
you
to
ask
see?
me a question. I don't need to see it because I don't want to see it. But just the same way a woman has X zillion eggs in her body, that sort of stops at about 35, 40. How many of those eggs go to use?
But you're overlooking the way the industry works. You're completely glossing over the process.
Can we work together and assist the way the industry works so it doesn't so it meets your standards?
Would you try to assist the way that child trafficking works in the industry?
Children,
Or would you want it to end?
once children are fertilised and stuff, that's a redundant question because we were talking about unfertilised eggs. And that's not
I
true.
asked you about meat, dairy, and eggs. You chose to focus on eggs, and you're only choosing to focus on the fact that an egg is unfertilized, glossing over the process of how an egg ends up on your plate. and I'm trying to educate you on that. Are you open to having your thoughts challenged on this topic?
Do you think I am?
I'd like to clarify because I don't think you are. Perhaps
Okay.
because you don't want to watch this. You said.
I have many times.
But then why are you focusing on the fact that an egg is unfertilized? That completely overlooks the process.
You asked me the question about eggs, so I'm just giving my.
Well, my question
in terms of beef and chicken and what was the other
My question was, and I'll repeat it, is that
Go for it.
can you be against animal abuse if you're eating meat, dairy, or eggs?
Yes.
Okay, so this is
You
why
can
I
be
felt that I
against-
needed to
you can be-
educate
You can
you.
be against eating eggs.
And this is why I
I'm
felt
quite
that I needed to
comfortable with
challenge
eating
your thoughts
eggs,
on
yeah.
this because
Are you
in
not
the egg...
comfortable with eating eggs?
Well, let me tell you why I'm not. Of course I'm not,
Because of
because
the
I'm
way it's
vegan.
mass-produced.
No, because that's completely beside the point.
So if it was
Because
done
in the
harmoniously...
let me just answer the question.
Sure.
When eggs when they get to your plate, what happens before that is chickens are forcibly bred.
Yeah.
The males are all thrown through a grinder and murdered. Let me finish. Let me finish.
As long as
The
you
males are
include-
murdered
as long as you
against
include-
their will.
As long as you include fish, because eggs are across all species. So don't just broaden it, narrow down to...
How often do you eat fish eggs?
More regularly than real eggs.
Okay, well, do you know what happens in the fish egg industry?
No, I don't, do you?
Yes, I do.
What happens?
Okay, well, they are cut open and murdered. They're pulled open and the eggs are pulled out of them. So do you think that's abuse?
Sounds like what any fishing is about, anyway, generally.
Yeah, so do you call
Absolutely,
stabbing
I
an
do.
animal and tearing them open abusive or not?
Absolutely, I do. If there was a way to governise how those eggs work, just like with hens, they're done without too much. They can be done without too much drama. Is that
No,
fair to say?
I was just explaining to you
Yeah,
how
yeah.
egg industries,
Yeah.
all of them are
But
incredibly abusive.
Exclude the egg industry. Me
Look, I
and you
think-
live out on a farm together.
Look, I think that we should just wrap this conversation up
But
because I feel like you're not willing to have your thoughts truly
I
challenged.
am,
on
but
this.
you're just referring to the industry. You're not referring
I'm telling
to
you
the
what
reality.
happens is, excuse me, no, I'm telling you exactly what happens in reality,
So the reality
and they're abused, all of them.
relating to industry.
No, well, of
So,
course,
they're
which is
not-
what you consume from these industries, isn't it?
So if we went bush and lived on a farm, and industry was not involved,
Right.
would that be okay with you?
No, of course not,
Still
because
is.
you're still
Why not?
putting a bullet into an animal's head in order to eat their flesh.
Now, if you were just taking the egg from
Well,
the
do you know what goes on in the whole breeding of chickens in order for you to have a chicken on your property?
If you were doing that. If you
So
were,
instead of looking for a good way to do something that's inherently evil, how about you just listen to what I'm saying?
No,
All
I am
animals,
trying to.
in order for you to eat any form of animal product, whether it's meat, dairy, eggs, leather, fur, down, silk, any other form of animal product you can imagine,
Going in the field, but yeah, okay.
well, all of these animals are subjected to the following. They're held against their will, right? So they're either confined in small spaces or they're enslaved on what looks like a grassy field and it looks all nice on a pasture, okay? They are tormented. They have their babies separated from them
It's
and they
called
go through a
parasites.
horrendous process of being mutilated and being tormented and tortured.
And using
And then they,
steroids to fatten them up, that's horrendous.
and then they're stabbed to death. All of them, even in the egg industry. You're not just getting an egg that pops out of the sky. You are getting an egg from a chicken who is abused and murdered. And that's the reality.
That egg isn't being stabbed. They're happily
The
doing
chicken,
it.
I said.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the reality.
The chicken is happily
Happily stabbed to death.
No, giving birth to the egg.
Happily giving birth to an egg every single day of their lives when they're supposed to only give birth or to have one cycle per month. That's their natural cycle. So they're not
humans.
they're not
It's-
happily giving eggs to you.
Well, if they're living with you, they wouldn't be doing it if they were in shock or in a state of stress or any other reason. I've got
Okay.
a lot of friends with chickens, and
Okay.
and they do that a lot more than once a month, and they seem happy. I mean, are we hypothesis. Are we watching them enough to understand whether they are happy or not? I would suggest maybe
You
not.
keep focusing on chickens and eggs.
That's,
What about meat? And here's my other question.
We
Before
don't-
you even answer that, are you willing to stop eating meat, dairy, and other animal products until you only have a chicken on your property that you only eat eggs from?
I eat meat on an occasional basis, and that's whenever I'm craving it.
So that means occasionally you're
shop for it.
So that means occasionally you are responsible for animals being abused
Yes,
and murdered.
yes,
And so if you're against animal abuse,
Yes.
how is it possible that you are truly against it when your actions contradict that?
because I balance it out with what my body tells me is healthy versus what it doesn't, as I hope you do, which is what any of us can hope to do in life, is be enlightened enough to realise what is positive and healthy for ourselves
Okay, so-
versus what is.
So now you're making the claim that
what-
we need to eat animals to be healthy, which is completely... What you're saying is plainly untrue.
Fair call. Fair call. I believe until it is scientifically proved otherwise, I believe there is an element of us needing a human product. I say that.
Why am I alive talking to you and not dead then?
Sorry.
Why am I alive and talking to you right now and not dead? If what you just said is true.
That's quite-
I've been vegan for many, many years now.
I didn't say it was a matter of.
You said we need it.
we need it.
Meaning,
In terms, I didn't say it's in terms of life or death.
So
I
what
didn't
do you
say
mean?
I say we need it in terms
Needing
of
it mean-
our whether it's nature or nurture, whether it's what's been building us by parents or not. There's an element where we know in ourselves, okay, at the moment I need something. Let's call it meat. Usually I go for oysters and mushrooms at a time, but sometimes I want like a steak. My awareness is my sensitivity to my own self, just the way yours is.
Yeah.
Your sensitivity tells you not to touch any meat-related products. Why? Just occasionally.
my morals tell me that, not my sensitivity. It's a really
That's
simple
probably your
equation.
ethics or morals.
Yeah, well, but you say you're against animal abuse too, but you're actually not living that
I
way
am. If
in
I
your
saw somebody
actions.
kick a dog, I'd go and fucking.
Well,
knock the
if
person.
someone kicked a dog behind a wall, would you support them? If it's out of plain sight, would you still support them?
Now this conversation is for that.
Okay, well, let's wrap it up then.
Stupid conversation.
It is, yeah.
Alright, be
I
well.
agree with you.
Be well. Ladies.
He smelled like alcohol, and I probably should not have entertained that for as long as I did. You could say that I'm a little bit rusty after being in the most lockdown city in the world. I just came out of lockdown since I think May of this year, and this was the first cube that I have done since then. And of course, my outreach has been impeded on because of that. I'm not saying what I did was all the way bad necessarily. I did my best, and I think anyone who spoke to that person did their best, would have had the same struggles, and you're not going to get through to people who aren't open and willing. It's that simple. And so, again, holding non-vegans accountable and following the process that we have with outreach is as simple as saying what needs to be said on behalf of the victims and letting the chips fall where they may, because at the end of the day, people need to choose to be open and willing to becoming vegan. And he was just going through Carnus bingo bullshit, nature over nurture. He didn't even know what he was saying. He was probably a little bit drunk, and I also, I really don't like it when non-vegans try to come over, and I don't think that we should ever pander to non-vegans who come over to our activism and say we really appreciate it, more of this needs to happen, but then they themselves aren't willing to actually align with our goal, which is for humans to be vegan. Yeah, you might say that what I am saying to people is aggressive. I am perhaps aggressive, but I don't think that that's a bad thing. Aggression is also conflated with violence, and I certainly was not violent with that individual. And when it comes to aggression, if you're not angry about what's going on to non-human animals who have the same capacity to suffer as we do in all of the ways that truly matter, then you're not paying attention to what's really going on. I'm angry. That's what makes me an effective activist. That's what has led me to starting this organization. This is what has led me to remain committed to this animal rights movement over the last 6 years. This is what has led me to continue to grow as an activist and to sharpen my tools as one of the most, maybe the most, I'm probably one of the most, maybe the most experienced outreacher in the animal rights movement today. This is why. It's because of my anger. When it comes to non-vegans like that, at the end of the day, you can't think that that person was ever going to listen regardless of what you said, which is probably why I shouldn't have entertained that conversation for as long as I did. I'm showing probably a poor example to you guys on what to do. And yeah, you shouldn't be talking to people who are inebriated, under the influence. But you know, when people come over and they say, I support what you do and I think more of this needs to happen, you know, you feel inclined to like use that as a segue to give them what they actually need to hear. He actually did understand, Alison. I don't know what you're talking about. What did he understand exactly? He understood that we have the right to do this to animals sometimes, because he said he occasionally eats meat and he was defending that. So exactly what did he understand? Is it okay to occasionally abuse humans? Is it okay to occasionally murder humans? Of course not. If we put ourselves in these animals' position, if we put ourselves in the victim's position, it's really that simple. I think that it's delusional to think that he was listening and he was understanding the point, because he clearly wasn't. And this message that we have is really simple. It's not complex at all. And so going around in circles and making this a complex topic is a distraction. It's a tactic that humans use to avoid the obvious truth that you're either responsible for animal abuse or you're not when you're not vegan. When you are vegan, you are not responsible for it. And it's just that simple. So anyway, I'm going to get back to work here, and I just wanted you all to basically see exactly what we are doing here in Brisbane City. And we're going to be here tomorrow and the next day, and we're also going to be here next weekend. Thank you, Sandy. Speaking the truth is not aggressive. And this is the other thing I want. Thank you for saying that, Sandy. I just want to point out that everybody will have an opinion about your approach to outreach and your approach to how you speak to people, whether it's online or whatever, any form of outreach that you do. And so this is not about appeasing vegans. This is not about appeasing anyone's opinion about whether you're doing this right or not. I appreciate it when people support me and show solidarity. But for those who criticize, I'm not doing this to appease you. I'm not even sure why you think that telling other vegans that the way that they speak to non-vegans is not effective. How about you show us how to do it? I have listened and learned from the best in this movement, and I continue to learn. Show me exactly what you do. Show me how to do outreach in a way that I can take inspiration from. And some people during this stream so far have said what I'm doing is on point. Some people on this stream so far are saying that what I'm doing is off point, which just goes to show that this is all subjective when it comes to like your opinion on whether it's effective or not. I do this based on my experience and based on what I've learned from activists in this movement that have done this at the highest level for years, long before I have done it even. And my own experience on the streets over the last 5.5 to 6 years now. So I am speaking from my experience, and for those of you who want to listen and take inspiration from what I do, I welcome you to do that. You know, I welcome you to do that. But I also welcome you to do your own research and try different tactics and see what works for you. But at the end of the day, I'm hoping to save people a lot of time with what I'm telling people you ought to be doing with outreach, because again, this is just a simple equation. It's very, very simple. This is not complex. You don't need to apply any kind of like psychological gymnastics to get through to people. It's just a very simple equation, holding non-vegans accountable for what they're responsible for and putting yourself in the victim's position, putting the victimizer in the victim's position also. And it's that simple. 30 years for you, Alison. Well, can you, and I mean this genuinely, can you send me videos of your outreach? Show me any kind of examples of your outreach working with non-vegans who are like him, who want to go through Carnus Bingo, through the gymnastics of trying to search for a good way to do this, and for justifying their occasional animal abuse, which was probably made up because I've heard that so many times, he's probably doing that more than just occasionally. Show me examples of you getting through to people like that. I'd like to see them, and I mean this genuinely. So I'm going to leave this now. I'm going to end the stream, and I'm imploring you to get out onto the streets this weekend and to get active and be a voice for the voiceless, to be a voice for animals who don't have a voice in our society. The most oppressed, end human supremacy. Peace.